Check. I believe we're live.
Check. 1, 2, 3. Check.
Chickity check. Tick tock. Tick tock.
1, 2, 3. Check.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know.
We're getting kind of fly there with that beat. With that beat we were rocking. All right, how's it going, everyone? Been a while since I've been live with the Apostate Prophet. S just said, first time I've ever been on time for one of these, and it's completely accidental. That is cool.
Wow, it's amazing. Hello, everybody. Greetings to Europe and South America and Africa and Asia and even to America, even to you Americans. Hello, everybody.
We did something. Well, I did something. I asked basically channel members and people on Patreon to send us any questions they'd like us to cover, and we're going to see how this works out. Keep in mind those aren't the only things we're going to answer, right? It's basically we'll be taking questions from the chat, but also taking questions that people had for us on Patreon and on the channel members community area. So we're basically going to see how this works out. Having questions from multiple different areas and see how it works. And if it works out well, then in the future, then here and there, AP and I will occasionally ask people for questions ahead of time. That way, people can really think about the things they want to ask. But also, it's easier for us to see them from a channel member where there's a list of like 17 questions and we clearly see them all, than when we're live and it's a chat and we're trying to speak and read at the same time, and we certainly miss tons of stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and give this a crack, see how it works out. So how's everyone doing? I see Mrs. Apostate there. I see Mrs. Apostate.
Hello, Mrs. Apostate.
Sounds
familiar.
It's cool that Mrs. Apostate watches you. My wife doesn't watch me. She helps me record my videos and stuff like that. She's the one behind the camera helping me record my videos and stuff. But
see, that's good. I do that all by myself, and it turns out to be terrible.
That's why. So if we were in the same area and we had both our wives, we have everything covered, right? So my wife would be helping. My wife would be helping with the camera work, and your wife would be watching everything we do live and helping out with the chat and stuff.
Yeah, the wives would be working, and I could just relax.
All right, so everyone, how's the sound before we go ahead and get started?
Sound okay. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Just
check. Check 1. Check 1. Check 1. Sound okay?
Check.
See, all we need is vocab. All we need is vocab here to bust the freestyle. Hey, Hindu historian is over there. Earlier, Hindu historian said he was going to the casino or something like that. And that if everything worked out, we'd have some awesome super chats. I don't see the super chats from Hindu historian, so I'm guessing he lost all his money. Hindu historian. Those places are set up, man. They
Hindu historian, don't go to casinos. And if you go to casinos, make super chats. Otherwise, there is no use in going to a casino. You should know that.
Yeah. Let's see. David sounds oddly handsome today. What?
Whoa. Who's it that?
Petrus. All right. So should we? Here's a question. Let's take a couple quick questions from the chat real quick, and then we'll jump into some of the ones I have pulled up over here. Cooking with AZ said, AP, are you not afraid after insulting Islam, especially as a Muslim? So I guess the question is, since you talk about Muhammad a lot, are you scared, especially since you're an ex-Muslim?
Scared of Muslims?
Yeah.
No. No, I'm not scared at all. I mean, there was a point, there was a time, to be serious for 1 second. There was a point when I started out with all of this, and when the channel suddenly started booming and it became very huge, got a lot of attention. There was a time that I was a little bit anxious, and I had anxiety issues, and I started kind of I don't know, overthinking a little bit. But then I don't know, I just got over it very quickly, and then I started not to care at all. And I don't care at all. And since I'm also protected by the FBI, that's everything is okay. And we are in America. I have the means to defend myself. So I dare you.
That's good. That's good. Cheryl R. rushed to my wife's defense and said she's too busy watching her 5 boys act 17 apologetics, which is more important. Much more important. So that is correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. She is with my kids. She doesn't have to watch all 5 of them. The oldest 2 can kind of watch their own.
Mike Ross said the coronavirus is worse than the coronavirus.
Yeah, I saw someone post that earlier in the. It was on Patreon, and one of the questions was, which is worse, the coronavirus or the coronavirus? But what he put after that was a little too. I don't want to put it up because apparently YouTube will just ban you based on you responding to a comment that you show on the screen, even if it's not you saying it, it's someone else saying it. So wild stuff.
Wild world.
All right. Are you ready to let's go ahead and jump on to some questions here. I would have shared the questions that are directed towards you ahead of time, but we got on right before we were going live. So
Jew and Greek said, "Where is AP from?" I am from Israel. My parents are Ashkenazi Jews. No, I'm from. I was born in Germany, and I'm of Turkish origin. I have to say, I might be extra goofy today. The only reason for that is that I'm very. I think I'm kind of restless. I'm very. I'm kind of tired because I spent the whole day trying to figure out how to get through a video that I was preparing about some ridiculous story in the Quran, and as ridiculously incoherent and absolutely absurd the language of the Quran is. I was trying to adapt to the Quran, and I was killing my brain while doing that. So I don't know. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know that. Let's go ahead with your questions.
Yeah, we've both been having problems with our videos, getting questions over there, about the different videos and stuff. But what a problem that we agreed we both keep having is we'll be working on a big video and then realizing we don't have time to finish that before something else is happening, so we jump to another one and then work on that for a while, and then I'm not going to be finished with that in time, so we jump to another one. So we have all of these partly worked on videos that haven't finished yet. One quick one here from Nate 2D2. He says, I heard you're going to be at something called Doctrine for the Block next week. What is Doctrine for the Block? Yes, for everyone in the Phoenix area, we've got an apologetics conference coming up. What's today? Today's Thursday, so not tomorrow, Friday and Saturday, but a week from now, Friday and Saturday, there is an apologetics conference in Phoenix. I'll be there. Vocab Malone will be there. Sam Shamoon will be there. A bunch of other people will be there. Maybe some jihadis who figure they've got us all in one spot will try to brutally murder us. You don't know what'll happen. We don't know, but yeah. Nate2D2, why don't you go ahead and find the link to share? I know that Vocab earlier had a link to a website for the conference, but basically for anyone in the Phoenix area you want to come. But we'll be giving presentations and stuff, but it's also a good time to come out there and we can hang out and stuff like that.
Why do you have to go there?
What? I mean, you got to be honest, right? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean that those dudes that Islamicized me was based on a kind of loosely based on a true story of a couple of guys who decided to go and kill Robert Spencer and Pamela Geller and so on over a cartoon contest. But those dudes are from Phoenix. And so there's some jihad rising there. So Yep. So, all right. All right, let's check out some questions here from the and AP. Anytime you see something from the chat that you wanna jump on, just jump on it, and we'll do that too. And so we'll kind of go back and forth between questions from supporters and questions from the chat here. All right, here you go. From Candace, question: If we see an ex-Muslim debating a believing Muslim in public, should we try to help them or let them fight it out alone? So, if an ex-Muslim, you're walking down the street and you see an ex-Muslim arguing with a Muslim, do you jump in and try to help them or not? What do you think?
In my honest opinion, I think if you're walking down the street and you see an ex-Muslim argue with a Muslim, it very much depends on what ex-Muslim that is, on what a situation that is. But in my opinion, I think you should just let them be. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's going to depend on the circumstances, right? I mean, if it's like like a woman who's, depending on the circumstances, if it's a woman who's an ex-Muslim and a Muslim is yelling at her and looks like he, might be trying to scare or intimidate her, that's a situation where you might want to, sort of pull up beside her and stuff like this. And, I would say in most situations, if you're even thinking about saying anything, I would say stop and, just listen, right? If it's on the street or something like that and you're spectating, then sit there and listen. And then if someone crosses a line or something like that, then you might want to jump in. But, so entirely... It will entirely depend on the situation. What do you want to add?
Now, what David was trying to say is that if a stronger person who looks more threatening is intimidating a weaker person, David wasn't, of course, trying to say that women are especially in need of our help. That would be very
misogynistic.
That would be very misogynistic of David to say.
No, but as soon as I was saying it, I was thinking, well, what if it's a little tiny dude and it's a big, a big Muslim was about to, beat his face in, but just still works as an example. All right, we'll take one more quick question over here. This would normally be a question for a Christian, but you actually deal with a lot of stuff about Islam from the perspective of how it relates to the Bible. So Don said,
a Christian who doesn't believe in Christianity.
Yeah. Yet. All right, here you go. Here's Don. And Don says, how does God having a specific, even philosophical name in the biblical tradition affect Islamic theology, especially considering name designates person? And you deal with this, right? You deal with this as far as the God of the Quran just not knowing the name of the God of the Bible.
Yeah, I made 2 videos about that. I'm still wanting to go on with that, to go on making an entire series about that. I don't want to let that go because I think that's a very important topic to point out how Islam was basically fabricated by people who weren't really aware of what Abrahamic religion is, what Christians and Jews believe in, what their scriptures teach, what their oral traditions are, and all that stuff. In fact, I'm even currently preparing a Turkish version of this whole argument. I would love to expand that to other languages as well. I think it is a very minimally discussed thing. Many people, I think people don't discuss it very much because people who are not Muslims, who are outsiders to Islam, are not fully aware of Islam's misconception with Allah and Allah's name, and people who are ex-Muslims are not fully aware of God's name in Abrahamic religion. But if you look very deeply into it, you realize that God's name in Abrahamic religion, in Judaism and Christianity, is Yahweh. It's very obvious. It is mentioned 7,000 times in the Bible, in the Christian Bible. 7,000 times it is mentioned. The name Yahweh is mentioned, and it is replaced with the Lord because That's how Jewish tradition went. Jewish tradition would go with people replacing the name of God with the Lord, or with Adonai or Hashem. And the Christian Bible picked that up and continued that. And as a result, since Jews and Christians wouldn't mention the name of God and would merely refer to him by his title, by what he is, which is God, and they would use words depending on their culture, such as Elohim or Eloh or Adonai or God, or whatever. Muhammad picked up the concept of God, but was never aware that God's name is actually Yahweh, which is why the name of God, Yahweh, is completely missing. And Islam actually implies that God's name, that the monotheistic Abrahamic God's name, is Allah, which is not true according to Judaism and Christianity. So there, Islam makes a huge blunder. If you ask Muslims, they will not say it, not accept that Allah's name is Yahweh. They will think that it cannot be his name. But according to Judaism and Christianity, that is certainly his name, and it should also be his name according to Islam, because Islam also adopted certain names from biblical traditions, such as Elijah, for example. Elijah explicitly means my God is Yahweh. That is the meaning of Elijah, Eliyahu. My God is Yahweh. And there are John, for example, and so many other names that include Yahweh as the name of God. So anyway, that is a vast topic that I could talk about forever. But in essence, Christianity and Judaism have a name for God, and Islam fails to adopt that name and gives God a new name, and is therefore inconsistent in its own scripture. And that is a huge mistake in Islamic theology and history.
Yeah. So that would be the pretty much same answer I would give Don. So that's what you get when you ask an atheist about the name of God in the Bible. Here are two related questions. Badger here in the super chat says, please invite YouTube's Run to Christ, Theophilus Most Excellent, and Somebody for Christ to join your online super apologetics project. They're brilliant and should be reaching a much wider audience. Well, I should have a video up about that tomorrow, basically on the situation dealing with the apologetics empire. So yeah, I originally envisioned this as, a group of 6, 7, 8 guys working together, cranking out videos, but did get a lot of interest from people around the world. And right before we started, AP and I were talking about maybe doing something similar somewhere down the road, but with people who are primarily focused on Islam. So this might be Christians, this might be atheists, this might be Hindus, but mainly people, especially like ex-Muslims who, whatever position they are now, if they want to start exposing the lies they were told throughout their lives and actually want to go out there, then there is no need to reinvent the wheel here. The people who figured things out on YouTube before you, no point in everyone going out there and relearning everything that people like us can tell you that we learned the hard way. And so basically content or your own unique niche that you're going after, that stuff's on you. But, the basics of learning how YouTube works and how to make your videos and how to do all this stuff, people can help you with that sort of thing. So, yep, we'll see what happens. But this one's for you, AP. Fred Sanford said, would AP wear an Apologetics Empire t-shirt? If so, what is his shirt size? I'm buying. I don't know why he would wear an Apologetics Empire shirt, but I'll let you answer.
Maybe as a challenge. If it is offered as a challenge, then I would wear it.
See, there you go, Fred. All you have to do is challenge him, and then he'll do it, right?
Yeah.
That's the part he left out of his when he's sharing how he left Islam, was basically someone said, "Hey, I dare you to leave Islam," and he did it.
Yeah, and I just left, so that's how it goes. Don't buy me a shirt, but thank you.
All right, let's take a couple more questions here. See what we got. Oh, this is a good one. We've kind of touched on this before in previous videos, which means this is an issue that just comes up a lot. So a lot of people are concerned about this. But how can we speak about the problems of Islam to other people without incurring the wrath of the PC police and being mislabeled? So we've heard this before. How are we going to talk about Islam, get the facts about Muhammad and the Quran out there without being, labeled Islamophobes and bigots? Because it's one thing for us. We're, our lives are on YouTube, and if people call us names, that's one thing. But for a student on a college campus, or someone who works in at a company and stuff like that, or a teacher or something like that, if you all of a sudden get labeled Islamophobic bigot, then that could have profound implications for the rest of your life. So what advice do you have, AP?
I think people should just completely be careless about whether they are policed, language policed or not. I think that's kind of what I have been trying to do from the very beginning. I mean, to use my words wisely, but also to just ignore the possible consequences of what I say, and just speak truth. Just speak as I do. I don't have anything bad, anything evil to say. If anyone ever has a problem with something that I say, then I know very well to justify what I said, because what I say is not based on anything terribly wrong. And I believe that would be the same with you if you ask such a question to begin with. So just go ahead and speak your mind. Don't let anyone police you. And I hope of course you do not have any problem with grooming gangs and stuff like that.
Oh, did you see that one?
Which one? What?
There was a question about grooming gangs.
Oh no, I didn't.
No, there was. Yeah, you just brought up grooming gangs of your own accord.
Yeah, I did.
No, there was a question. I lost it here, but someone asked if we have a problem with grooming gangs in the U.S. And
really?
Yeah, I would say I have occasionally read a story where it's like, a group of Somali Muslims, and they're, pimping out a girl or something like that. So it's occasional, but just nowhere near what you have in places like in places like the UK and so on. So it's not a huge issue here, fortunately. But as far as I would add, notice what AP just said there, and what would be wonderful is if everyone kind of did it at the same time, right? If there was ever some massive exodus from political correctness, and everyone just at the same time said, you know what, I don't care what anyone thinks about what I say, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If that ever happened, they kind of can't get all of you. You know what I mean? They can't get everyone at the same time. If one person sort of stands up at a time, then they can all jump on that person, and that serves as a warning to other people. But with all of that said, so if you're in a situation where if all that's going to happen is someone's going to call you names or something like this, or call you bigot, don't worry too much about that. But if you are in some sort of situation where it's kind of a bigger issue, there are ways to go about it, right? So you can get across the same facts about Muhammad and we've talked about this before. You can so let me just give this example that I always come back to. You can say if you want to get a point across about Muhammad having a sexual relationship with a 9-year-old prepubescent girl, you can say, hey, your prophet's pedophile, he's a pervert, he's a sicko, blah, 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 blah. But you might be in a situation where that could get you into trouble. But you can get across the same information. You can get across the same information in a different way. If you're talking to a Muslim or to a non-Muslim, let's say you're talking to a leftist, if you just print out some of the sources or an article or something like that, you can go up to that leftist and say, hey, I always see you seem to really like Muhammad and stuff. Me, I'm still learning about Muhammad, but I'd be interested in how you reconcile your praise of Muhammad with this information in the sources. Could you check this out and tell me what you think? I'd really be interested, because I just want to make sure I'm getting all sides and I'm being open-minded about all this, right? So if you're putting that out there at the front, hey, I'm trying to be open-minded about all this stuff, then that person's in a kind of position where if he jumps all over you because you're saying something he disagrees with or something like that, then he's the one who's being intolerant and bigoted and so on. Same thing with a Muslim, right? You could come at a Muslim and say, "Oh, Muslim, Muhammad did all these horrible things," or you can go up to that same Muslim and say, "Hey, I was watching this video by this super evil dude called the Apostate Prophet, And this guy, the Apostate Prophet, he made this video about Muhammad, and I don't want to just listen to him. I don't know how reliable he is until I actually get both sides of the story. So could you check out what he said and then give me your perspective on this? Because I'd like to hear from you. And that's actually a pretty cool thing to do. You're asking that for that person's perspective. Now notice, you're getting the same information across. In fact, you might even, in that sort of situation, you might even be able to get more information across. Yeah. But you're doing it in a way where the blame is not on you. The blame is on the Apostate Prophet, or on me, or on someone else if someone doesn't like the material that's there. So, those are some thoughts.
Last time I said you could even go there and say, I don't know if you just basically said that, but you could act like you don't really like me, or you don't really like David Wood, and you just think we're a bunch of jerks, and you could ask that person to give it a try and to watch this and to.
Keep in mind, you're not even being dishonest if you say we're a bunch of jerks, because we are, right? So we're not talking about like misrepresenting yourself or your intentions and stuff. You could say, hey, I was watching this video by these guys. They're kind of like, sarcastic, and they're jerks, but they were given sources. Could you look at those sources and tell me what you think? Yeah. And
you can always throw me under the bus.
Throw us under the bus. Great to good. We love it under the bus. That's our home. That's our home. Yeah. Shout out to Cheryl R for the super sticker, which is a hippo spinning in an office chair. I actually need I need an office chair. I gave my old one to my kids and stuff, so I never got a new one. So I'm actually sitting on a hard wooden chair, which destroys my back. But I'm gonna get one, and that super chat will help. All right.
Everyone, like the video. The like function is very important on YouTube. If you like a video, that means that the video will be supported, that it will statistically do better on YouTube, that the channel will do better. So the like button actually has a function. Many people don't know that. So if you want to help the channel, if you want to just help a little bit, you can use the like button and treat it like an Islamist would treat me, for example. Like, I am the like button and you are an Islamist. Go ahead.
Destroy that. That means destroy and mutilate that like button.
Yep.
Just so everyone knows, links in the description box. If you're new to AP, I'm sure very few of you are new to the Apostate Prophet. But if you are, it's your first time watching stream with the AP, then I got links to his YouTube channel and to his Patreon page in the description box. All right, now you have a bit more of a tricky one here. You had a few questions that are people asking your perspective on some religious or moral issues or something like this. So here you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here you go. That'll be on your screen there. You're at a slight delay as far as if you want to read it, but I'll go ahead and read it out. Question for AP. From an atheist worldview, morality is purely subjective. There's a lot of places you could disagree with something said here. From an atheist worldview, morality is purely subjective, and there is no afterlife. So how would you personally say, this is by a fan, this is from a fan, by the way, but a Christian fan. So how would you personally say what you do is important work if it ultimately doesn't actually matter, because there's no eternity and we all die anyways? And how do you perceive Islam as being evil if morality is purely subjective from an atheist worldview? P.S. I believe what you do is really important work. I just want to see how you articulate your thought process. So in effect, basically, how is Islam evil from your worldview? And two, why does it matter what you do if the universe is eventually going to die a heat death and that's the end of it anyway?
Interesting question. I like that question very much. I don't know if I will be able to sufficiently answer the question right now in a live chat. We were talking earlier, just before we started, before we went live. David and I were talking about how our answers are not as sufficient during a live stream as they are when we actually record it, because it takes a while to collect your thoughts very well. And in fact, I thought about this question very much, and I wrote quite a bit about it. I actually even planned on making a video about this topic. In fact, I think I even made a a working title, which was something like, "Why am I criticizing Islam if everything is going to be fine?" There are some premises here. First off, I don't agree with the premise of the question, which is that morality is purely subjective. I don't believe that morality is purely subjective. I believe that morality has been established in societies, by society, among humans, in humanity, and that is such a long topic. But to summarize it, I would say I disagree with the premise that morality is subjective. That it's that you can judge morality completely differently based on what culture you are in. I would say that that people actually build their morality based on what is good for themselves. We can historically verify that. I don't believe that people attain some sense of morality and good and bad from a higher source or from some unknown source or through their genes, through their blood or anything at all. I think people attained morality and made moral rules based on necessities, based on social contracts. People were individuals. People came together. People were tribes. People fought each other. People started living together. And as people started living together, as they rode together and lived together and grew together, they had to make rules in order to be able to live together. And they didn't make those rules just because they cared about each other. They made those rules because they cared about themselves. Humans essentially wanted to live proper lives. They wanted to be prosperous themselves. In order to survive, in order to get help when they need it, they made rules in which they have to help each other. I am supposed to help you live a better life so that you help me. I even think I believe very much in the philosophy that everything we do in life we do for ourselves. So we have some sense of egoism. Anyways, long story short, if you are really interested in that, I would talk a lot about that in a dedicated video on philosophy. But I believe that we actually have rules that we have established that are very much universal, such as not murdering each other, which is something that you can find in every religion and pretty much in every society, almost every society, except in some untouched tribes that didn't yet come that far. You can find rules about not eating each other because people don't want to, because people sense disgust with that, because you don't want to be hunted and killed. That's why we make rules about cannibalism, for example. People believe that we shouldn't sexually violate each other because people don't want to be violated and people don't want their partners to be taken away that way. There are rules like these, and I believe Islam violates some of these very basic rules, for example, that we almost universally have, that Islam violates. And again, long story short, I don't want to make this too long. I believe that we make rules for our own good. That many cultures came together and made great rules that we live by and that we happily live by. But Islam makes rules that, as the majority of humankind, we judge to be bad rules, to be wrong rules, to be rules that most of us don't like. That's why most people don't like Islam. If you ask most people in the world, most people don't dislike Christianity. Most people don't dislike Judaism. They don't dislike Hinduism. They don't dislike Buddhism. But most people have something against Islam because of the way Islam is, because of how it violates very universal laws. And in that sense, because I care about myself, because I care about you, about society, about my neighbor, and essentially about my own good, because I care about everyone, and because, again, I care about my own good, I believe that it is a noble cause to counter Islam. And I would like to do something for the future generation, for my children. Mm-hmm. I hope that answers the question a little bit.
Yep, and I think we will both have much more to say along these lines in the future, because we're both planning on making video stuff on, videos on this issue down the road. Yeah. Michelle Marie in the super chat said, in Syria, child brides are the norm. It is culturally acceptable to marry a 9-year-old to a 50-year-old. They are very defensive about it, including the Islamic leaders. Yeah, and there's a reason for that. If that's your culture's practice and you've been raised to think that's okay, and simultaneously, if you criticize it, you're criticizing your prophet, then that makes it kind of a sensitive topic. But notice, here's what happens, right? It's sensitive. It's a sensitive issue culturally because it's a sensitive issue culturally. So you're going to upset people if you start criticizing it, and religiously, that you're attacking the greatest man who ever lived if you criticized it. And so, guess what? Lots of people aren't going to bring it up, and lots of people aren't going to want to talk about it because you're going to hurt everyone's feelings. But notice what happens. If no one brings it up and no one talks about it, then the practice continues forever, right? And you keep getting these, 9-year-old girls married off to 50-year-old guys. And so that's for people who are living in a Muslim area, guys, I understand why you don't want to bring this up. You don't want to go out and criticize something and then get killed for it. But yeah, that's why it's awesome that people like AP and me and so on are in a place where we are safe. Not completely safe, but we're safer than lots of people. And so, guys, that's kind of why we have an obligation here. We have an obligation to do this on behalf of the people who can't do it, right? There are people who can't do it in their areas, or they just be getting killed. So that's why it falls to us. We have to do these things. I did get a super chat here from Hindu historian who said gambling is bad. Yeah, that's that's good, right? Oh, here it is. I found it. I saw it over here. But yep, there we have Hindu historian. You heard it from Hindu historian, ladies and gentlemen. Gambling is bad. Thinking he knows that from personal experience. All right.
Someone said I can't find the comment here right now, but someone said wait, where was that? Let me find it. Someone said something along the lines of David and AP, you should change positions sometime. David as an atheist and AP as a Christian.
We actually, the philosophy students at Old Dominion University, we actually, we used to have meetings called Philosophy Slam, where that would occasionally be the assignment, right? You'd be in there arguing a position or listening to a speaker, and you'd be arguing for your own position. And we would have it set up to where something like every 7 minutes you have to change your position and argue for the opposite and stuff as a kind of philosophical exercise. So yeah, those issues can be fun. And what would be interesting is because guess what? Anyone can change the position and then just make the position sound stupid, right? It's like if you ask me right now, David, defend Islam, and I go, well, oh, look at me, I'm a prophet. I can have sex with a 9-year-old girl. And I just, make it sound as stupid as possible. That's one thing. But to actually try, that's what I would find interesting. When someone who we had in that meeting, there was a Jewish student, right? She's a devout Jewish young woman, and she had to change position, and the topic that was being talked about at that time was the resurrection of Jesus. And to watch her start all of a sudden defending the resurrection of Jesus, but actually trying, right? Not just trying to make it look stupid, actually trying, would be cool. It'd be cool to see a Christian arguing for an atheist position, or an atheist arguing for a theistic position, or something like that. So yeah, that's it's not those things can be interesting and entertaining.
Can I say something very briefly about?
Are you serious? You don't have to ask, man. You just say, I am going to say this.
No.
I'm a guest.
It's because of the thing that I was just talking about the morality issue. Mm-hmm. So some people said, like Bill Thompson here said, for example, AP, I love your work. You just described subjective morality. If you found out for sure without a doubt that Christianity is true, would you become a Christian? I don't agree that I described subjective morality. I think people have some misunderstanding, and I often believe when I watch debates, I don't watch debates, I just listen to debates very briefly because I actually hate debates. But when I see atheists talk about this issue and Christians talk about the subject of morality, I think there is a giant misunderstanding that people make. There is some sort of black and white thinking, I believe, that morality is either completely subjective or completely objective. I don't believe that is true. I don't believe that either of those positions are true. I believe that morality is is subjective insofar that people have established morality universally, but that doesn't really mean that morality is subjective in the sense that people often mean that morality was subjective, such as that if you go to a different culture, you can do whatever you want because their morals are different. You can suddenly murder and kill and rape and whatever. That's not really how it works. I would believe that that morality is objective in a way that people have long ago established a sense of morality universally, and that humans have made global social contracts in order to abide by those morals, because they know very well what is good and what is bad for them. There might be some societies that don't stick to that don't have the same sense of morality, but those societies don't function, they don't work, and eventually the rest of us force them to accept our moralities. For example, people often give the example of Nazi Germany. They say, well, Nazi Germany had their own morals. They thought it was a good idea to massacre a bunch of Jews. So what are you going to say about that? Well, the thing is, the Nazis did indeed force the people to accept that it is a good idea to force the Jews out, or as a final solution to kill the Jews. But see, they didn't prevail, and the reason they didn't prevail is that their reinterpretation of morality was not a morality that the rest of us agree with. So we forced them again to abide by our sense of morality. We forced them, I say that conveniently, to abide by our sense of morality that most of us agree with is healthy for us. So insofar, I would say morality was maybe subjective at some point in human history, but it is not subjective anymore, mostly. When it comes to certain issues like homosexuality or eating certain foods, it is still subjective. It would be then partially subjective, not completely subjective. Anyways, just go on. This is such a huge topic. I don't think we would just get out of this by talking about it for 5 minutes. But yeah, I don't agree with either position that morality is completely subjective or completely objective. And I would say that religions have established their moralities also subjectively, because if you look from religion to religion, you will find a sense of subjective morality.
All right. Again, we're going to have to deal with that a lot more in the future. But yep. By the way, anytime you see anyone else's comments that you want to address along those lines or other lines, just jump right in there. Whatever else I'm doing. Pitar said, "Hi David, you might remember that I once mentioned that I commented about when Jesus was tempted by the devil in the desert. He resisted what Muhammad wanted. I think you could make a video about that." So when Jesus was tempted, anyone who's read the story, he was offered various things. One, that he should jump off and in the sight of everyone, and then they would see him survive a fall. Food, and of course all the kingdoms of the world, which would be the main one. But yeah, that's what Muhammad wanted. What did Muhammad want? He wanted apparently fame and conquering the entire world. So yeah, that is a potential video, that Jesus saying, "No, I'm not accepting that offer," and then Muhammad maybe being offered the exact same thing and saying yes. All right, let's. We have. Hey, here's an interesting one. This one, let me see if I can scroll down to this, because I'd like to put it on the screen. We had Django in the super chat. Thank you, Django. We had Carmel Crunk said, "What prophecy from the Quran has been fulfilled?" Not aware of any serious prophecy of the Quran being fulfilled.
No, I would say the only prophecy that has been that was supposedly fulfilled is the prophecy about the war between the battle between the Roman Empire and
the Persians,
and the Persians, but it hasn't been fulfilled exactly the way the Quran said. In fact, the Quran makes a mistake in its fulfillment. But
I've seen a couple of those things. There are a couple of problems. One, even going with the standard timeline, I've read that the timeline that the Quran actually refers to, it doesn't actually fit, because it actually refers to a specific amount of time, and that it didn't happen. And then it was Christian Prince who cited a hadith that said this passage of the Quran. I believe, I have to go back and check, but he cited a hadith which said the battle had already happened when this verse of the Quran was revealed. So so basically what we're saying is that's the only one we can think of as far as a prophecy, and we can't even think of how that one would actually be a legitimately fulfilled prophecy. So not terribly good.
That's actually an interesting point to make a video about. That's a very interesting topic, because Muslims love to, among each other, point out that this is a miracle of the Quran, that this is a prophecy that has been fulfilled, because this is the only, thing that you can call a prophecy in the Quran that actually seems like it has been fulfilled. But then if you look at the details, it's not really, it didn't really happen the way they want to make you believe it happened.
Are you familiar with this? Takia Watch says, the hijab day is coming up on the 1st of February. He says, let's drop tons of videos that amplify the voices of women that can't choose. The hijab is a tool to help the sexuality of Muslim men. Can you comment on it? So is that correct? You heard about that? Is that a International Hijab Day or something like that? I wasn't following.
There is a thing. There are some activists that are trying to push a World Hijab Day for February 1st, I believe.
Oh, yep. I looked it up. It's there.
And there are others who want to counter that and make a no hijab day instead. Yasmin Mohammed is one of the main figures who leads that campaign to make a no hijab day in response to the World Hijab Day. I don't know. I think the World Hijab Day doesn't get very much attention, which is good. But there are a lot of people who are countering that with the no hijab day. But it would be beneficial to make another video about the hijab. And I'm thinking of it. The thing is that I'm really behind with my whole publishing this week. I don't know if I'll do that.
I can guarantee I will not be getting that out. I will be at a funeral that day. But if you put one out, I will be sure to share that.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that.
So yes, World Hijab Day. I'm just reading the description. World Hijab Day is an annual event founded by Nazma Khan in 2013. The event takes place on February 1st each year in 140 countries worldwide. Its stated purpose is to encourage women of all religions and backgrounds to wear and experience the hijab. Event organizers describe it as an opportunity for non-Muslim women to experience the hijab. What? Now, here's what really sucks, AP. There are people, both men and women, there are people who like attention, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden a woman starts, let me try this to show my solidarity with Muslim women. And they put on a hijab and walk around in the hijab. And then everyone's going, oh, what are you doing? What's going on? Oh, tell me about that. And then all of a sudden they get a bunch of attention. They like it. And so I think that's who this is geared towards, right? Hey, if we get a bunch of people to put on the hijab, some subset of those women are going to really like the attention they get from putting on the hijab, and they're going to want to stick with it. I'm guessing.
Yeah. That really tempts me to make a video about that now. I don't know.
Oh, or maybe. Nah, I was going to say maybe we should put on the hijab and experience it. Do something with that. All right. Here was the question I wanted to get down to. This is from William Butler in the super chat. William Butler in the super chat says, David Wood, if you had to choose between your daughter, I don't have a daughter, but I'll go ahead and say we can both answer this. If you had to choose between your daughter marrying a Muslim, atheist, or Jehovah's Witness, which would you choose and why? That's kind of weird. What do you think?
I don't know. I would just. I mean, it's my daughter. She's free to do whatever she wants to do. I don't think it would be okay for me to make a comment on this. Just due to the fact that I might at some point have a daughter and she might be in such a situation, and I don't want to have made a comment about that at all.
Yeah, so I guess the idea is that from the perspective of Christianity, all of these positions are false. So which one? And so really, it would have to come down to kind of the guy, right? Because guess what? There are Muslims who were like Nabil Qureshi was when he was a Muslim, and he's like a really nice, decent guy, right? So that versus an atheist who's just a total scumbag. Both false positions. So which one would you want? It would have to come down to the guy. All if everything else were equal. If everything else were equal, it was like the same guy in every respect. I don't know. I'll probably go with the Jehovah's Witness just because I think he's going to agree with me that the Bible is the source of authority, and then he'd be easiest to bring around to the truth. So, but I don't actually know that because people, So I don't know. It's kind of a don't know.
Yeah. Mrs. Apostate just said, "Why don't we have a?" Why don't they make a World Circumcision Day?
Yeah, we should do it. We can't do it. We can't do it this time. We can't do it this time because I mean, you can do something this time, but we can't like plan something big now because it's about to happen. But yeah, in the future, we could come up with all kinds of alternatives. We could come up with all sorts of parallels to that and show that, guess what? The Muslim community is not going to do any of them. They're not going to do anything that actually honors or celebrates some other religious tradition. These sorts of things are only one way. But yes, if you wanted to, if you wanted to really experience Islam, there are all kinds of other things you could do besides the hijab. So.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I don't know. There are still people wanting to argue with me about the whole morality issue. I don't know. I would argue. I would talk about that all day, but I don't want to dedicate all of the talk to that right now. So
yeah, guys. AP. If you ever want to have a future session where we just kind of focus on that and try to iron things out, it's guys. You can't really iron it out even if we went 3 hours on nothing but that topic. We basically get the main ideas of each of the positions down and stuff like that. But so yeah,
I'm thinking of creating I sometimes think of creating a second YouTube channel just where I can post things regarding philosophy, my beliefs, and stuff like that. I don't want to get all of that on my Apostate Prophet channel or on here because I don't want to pollute the thing, the subject that I'm dealing with.
How many channels are you planning to have?
I don't know. That's just something that I have in mind that I think it would be great if I did that, but I don't know if I can actually manage that.
The Apostate Prophet 5 years from now will have like 9 channels.
9 channels, yeah. I'll post on yeah. I don't know how that would go, but I was thinking of just a channel with my name or something like, I don't know, the pragmatic whatever or the free thinking whatever, where people can follow me who are explicitly interested in having a debate on such topics. You
got to give yourself a super cool atheist name though, like super cosmic free thinking atheist 666 skeptic blah blah blah. I always put something like that in there. They put some combination of those.
With all due respect to all those friendly atheist people, I like their work. I really like what you're doing, but I wouldn't. I think it would be very painful if I gave myself such a name. The cosmic whatever, skeptic. This is not a jab at Cosmic Skeptic. I actually like Cosmic Skeptic's channel. Greetings to Cosmic Skeptic if you ever get wind of this and if you suddenly start hating me for this. But no, I wouldn't do that.
Shout out to Lisa Look for the super sticker. I still, to this day, I've never gone into the super stickers to see what kind of stickers there are to post. But this one is a some sort of, I don't know, monster? Is that a human? I can't, what is that? But shaking these... what are those things called? Those instruments that you shake? Those I want to say margaritas, but I know that's not right. Maharenas. What are those? Anyone remember what those are called? Do you know what those are called?
Instruments that you
shake them like that. Did you actually search that?
Yeah. Instruments, maracas.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
So I knew it was something with an M and a "uz" on the end. So Carmel Crunk said, "What prophecies of the Bible have been fulfilled? Too many to list." And then Michelle Marie actually has a correction for us, AP, on the Quran prophecies. Michelle Marie says, "What about the prophecy that a false prophet would die from Allah cutting his carotid artery, and then while Muhammad was making the statement that he could feel his carotid artery was cut?" So this is those of you who don't know what Michelle Marie is talking about, watch my video, "Who Killed Muhammad?" Who killed Muhammad? I know a Christian apologist who's he's a former cold case detective. So he spent decades. I actually saw him on one of these shows, like 48 Hours or something like this, where they're talking about a cold case investigation, and this guy was on there. But he's a cold case detective, and I'm thinking about asking him. I don't know if he's going to say yes, but I want to say that, hey, I want to make a long video with him where he's a cold case detective, and I come in there and I say, hey, I got a cold case for you. It's 1400 years old. And basically then he spends the rest of the video going through the Muslim sources to solve the mystery of Muhammad's death, and concludes that Allah killed him for inventing false revelations. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see what he says.
I just came up with a name for my philosophy YouTube channel, inspired by people in the live chat who made some suggestions. It will be the Illuminated Free-Thinking Cosmic Annihilator.
That was good. I actually have me and John McRae are gonna have, when we need to be atheist characters for skits, I'm gonna be super atheist and he's gonna be the hitch slap. I'm hoping no one thought of that before, because it seems too obvious. An atheist called the hitch slap.
Oh wait, I want to add machine to my name. It's going to be Free Thinking Cosmic Annihilator Machine.
Skeptic Machine.
That's my name. Annihilator Skeptic Machine. Okay. FCASM. Awesome.
Rocky Mountain said, and then we'll get back to some of these questions we had ahead of time. He says, "Infinite personal God, not limited by space, time, or part of creation, giving revelation of himself, truth in verifiable ways, allows us to understand we're made in his image, to know in part the truth." Thank you. And cool looking dog. But then your magazine there has a guy with a gun. It looks like it's pointed right at the dog. He's got a machine gun pointing at the dog. Anyway. Really? Well, I'm looking at it in a very, very tiny little thing, but it looks like a guy's got some sort of rifle there pointed right at the dog. It's on a magazine. It's a dog sitting beside a magazine, but then the gun's pointed.
That's a cool dog.
I don't know if that's supposed to be a subtle message that we're supposed to shoot dogs, and that maybe Muhammad is actually your hero.
Yeah, and now you put it on the screen. And
Rocky Mountain. Yeah.
Look what you have caused. Look what we have just done.
All right, let's get back to a couple of these questions we had screenshots of from earlier. This one's cool. My question for AP is: there are people from the West who convert to Islam, even smart people. For example, on AP's channel, he talked about the guy from Geert Wilders' party, Joram van Klaveren. I know they probably have weird ways to pronounce that there. Joram, yeah. Yeah. What? Oh, so I was saying Keurig for the coffee maker. I was saying Keurig, and my son Blaze is going, "You mean a Keurig?" And I go, "No, it's Keurig, man. Don't you EU? Don't you know what the sound that makes in German, man? Go Deutschland, not Deutsch. Come on, right?" And so anyway, he looked it up, and it turns out it's actually Dutch, not German. And so it was I was wrong on the sound there. But so the question here is, why do smart people convert to Islam even in the West, where they can't? You could obviously, you could be a smart person in a Muslim country and be be raised to believe it, and or not want to disagree with it because it's not exactly safe. What about smart people even in the West, where people have freedom, converting to Islam? What do you think?
Well, I would say, first off, I would say that intelligence, or a person being smart, doesn't necessarily say about whether this person holds on to what is true or not. There are, there are a lot of smart people who believe in a lot of dumb nonsense, while there are a lot of very stupid people who have a lot of great ideas, or who believe in many great things, who contribute great in wonderful ways to society. So I don't think that being smart or not smart is a good indicator, is necessarily the best indicator of whether someone is onto something good or not. That's therefore someone who is maybe smart, maybe not the smartest person in the world, but maybe above average smart, can obviously convert to an idea that doesn't really make very much sense, or that is not the best idea to have. I talked a little bit to Joram van Cleveren, and the issue with him is, for example, that he converted to Islam, and he now believes in a form of Islam that is in a way revisionist and reformist. He believes he rejects many of the mainstream positions of Islamic scholars. He believes in a more revisionist Islam, where he thinks that things that Islamic caliphates have done in the past are wrong, and that there is some correct form of Islam. So much to Joram van Cleveren, but as said, it can very well be that someone who is normally smart and who normally has good ideas about other things can find themselves in a very terrible position. In fact, I do believe that at least one of the apologists that I've interacted with recently over the last year is not necessarily a stupid person, Mm-hmm. I don't want to give any credit. I don't want to give any names now, but maybe only one, to be very fair, of the people is not a very stupid person, but they just have wrong ideas. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and guys, keep in mind, we all, but whatever your position right now is, right, whether you're Christian, atheist, Muslim, Hindu, whatever, we all believe that very intelligent people defend positions that we disagree with and we think are clearly false. But my experience with people who convert to Islam in the West is that they just are rarely informed of the facts, right? In other words, after debates and so on, I would always hear people come up to me saying, "Hey, I converted to Islam 3 years ago, and I saw that it's the truth," and I would ask why, and then I would get a bunch of total nonsense, right? Things that are completely false based on the Muslim sources. It would be things like, oh, because of the scientific miracles, or because it's a literary miracle, or something like that, or because of the amazing perfect preservation of the Quran. It would be all kinds of things like this that are just total nonsense. And what you find is that it's just, there are, even among intelligent people who do not sit down and seriously study sources before they come to a conclusion, right? In fact, I'll go ahead and say it. I have never met someone who converted to Islam after doing what I would regard as a careful study of Islam.
Yeah.
Right? It's always they heard a bunch of stuff from the Muslim preacher and decided to go along with it. Now, keep in mind that it could be a person who was very critical of Islam before and then came around, right? Because you start thinking, oh, well, I didn't know all this fascinating information about Islam before, and now I'm hearing all these amazing things from the Muslim preacher, and wow, this must be the truth. I apologize for the things I've said. You can do that, but yeah.
Well, let me say something. I mean, if there was a huge number of people who are very intelligent and to convert to Islam, in fact, if Islam was led by a huge group of people who are known to be a very intelligent part of the population, then I would think, okay, we should further discuss this issue. But that is simply not the case. Mm-hmm. That is definitely not the case. And people are not converting to Islam. I mean, you can live 100 years in the West and never meet someone who actually converted to Islam. That's how it looks in reality. Mm-hmm. While Muslims are trying to tell us that people converted to Islam by giving us just one example or two. I have personally met 3 people, I believe, who converted to Islam. All three of them had little to no idea about the contents of Islam before they converted. They learned much of what they learned about Islam after they converted to Islam, and then they just had this urge to hold on to it. I know very well that one of them had a big trouble holding on to what Islam tells him, but he had to keep going because he came out of a miserable life, and Islam was telling him that he has to believe in it, or otherwise he shall be punished and even killed in an ideal Islamic society. I know even for a fact that one of the very argumentative Muslim apologists who happens to be a convert, they are very rare in society, had a very, very extremely troubled life before he converted to Islam, and didn't know very much when he converted to Islam, and has changed his Islamic position numerous times over the last decade. So I wouldn't say that there is a high and reliable number of intelligent people converting to Islam. I think people who make themselves familiar with what Islam actually teaches and what the Islamic scripture contains, if those people make themselves familiar with it, they easily come to the conclusion that it's a bunch of nonsense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had to. Anyways.
All right, let's try and blast through some of these. So here's a funny one.
Let's shoot.
Let's check this out. Google user says, why is the Quran so badly written that I cannot read more than 1 page per day? And this is painful.
Oh my God.
Second part is why the Quran makes me feel like I'm getting demon possessed. Isn't it supposed to be a religious book? All right, let's focus on the first part of that. Why is the Quran so badly written that he can't read more than 1 page per day? And even this is painful.
Let me tell you something. Today, I spent my day trying to study, trying to keep up with stuff, and then the second half of the day I spent hours of it trying to finish a script on a certain issue that I want to discuss in my next video, which is about the 7 sleepers, people who supposedly slept in a cave for 300 years and then woke up and found a miracle and all that stuff. The Quran tells this weird story. I'm telling you, I sat down looking at the part of the Quran. It is like 20 verses. I looked at it. I tried reading through it. My brain was dying. It was melting. My brain was screaming for help. It was if my brain could speak, it would probably complain. It would call the police on me and would ask someone to help it out of this terrible situation that I'm putting my brain through. It is such an agonizingly terrible book that it is so incoherent and so poorly written, so terribly informed that even the best translators of the Quran, for example, one of those translators of the Quran who is M.S. Abdul Halim or something like that, he has a very different.
That's my favorite one, by the way.
Yeah, M.A.S. Abdul Halim. He has a very different translation of the Quran. He tries to write the Quran in a very readable way, in such a way that it actually sounds good. And even his form, which is the best written translation, interpretation of the Quran, sounds terrible because the original substance that you find there is written in such a horrible way. It's unbearable. I try to get through it and I really can't. I wrote and deleted my script over and over again because I'm trying to explain to people what the Quran is actually saying, because the Quran is just so I don't know. I'll keep rambling on this forever, but it is so terribly written because it was written in the 7th century by people who weren't really very, very much familiar with proper literature and with the proper use of of language and its devices, with properly conveying intelligent thoughts to people. It was written by people who used language to communicate with each other over what to sell each other and what to eat, and what poems to write about the jinns that roam the nights in the desert. They didn't have proper understandings of further discussing ideas, and such people wrote the Quran, and that's what we have today in the 21st century, trying to get intelligent conclusions from this ridiculous book that we have.
Come on, AP, tell us what you really think. Quit holding back. No, guys, I have the same. Keep in mind, we talk about the Quran being just a horribly, horribly written, awful book. It's not because I disagree with it. I disagree with a lot of what's in David Hume's dialogues concerning natural religion. Right? I disagree with a ton of what he says. The book is phenomenally written. It's phenomenally written. It's brilliant. I disagree with Plato on all kinds of things. His dialogues are usually phenomenally written. I like Aristotle more than I like Plato, but Plato is just a massively better writer, at least when he's writing dialogues. Aristotle apparently wrote dialogues, but just none of them survived and so on. So the point is we're not just saying, we disagree with this, therefore we're going to insult it. It just really is that bad. It's horrible. It's completely disorganized. It jumps from topic to topic. You've got all the, even according to Muslim, keep in mind, here's what's funny. Muslims will tell us that it's the greatest book ever written. It's so perfect. And then we'll say, okay, what does Allah mean when he says, fight those who do not believe? Oh, what he really meant was, and they'll tell us he meant something completely different. Well, is it really a wonderfully written book? If Allah is constantly telling you to do things that he doesn't really mean, he means something else, then you have to say it's like an awful book, right? What does Allah mean here when he says if your wife gets out of line, you beat her into submission? Oh, what he really means is tap her with a toothbrush. Well, wouldn't it be better written if he said tap her with a toothbrush, if that's what he meant? Yeah. Why can't he actually say what he means? Anyway, so Allah, worst communicator in all of history, and so that's why you end up with the Quran. Let
me demonstrate something. Look, this is what I was reading today.
You guys wanted the proof? You want the proof? Here's the proof of the miraculous Quran. Good.
Look, this is where the topic starts, okay? This is where the context starts. In any book, if you start a topic, you would have a proper introduction into the topic, to make people understand what it is talking about. Let me give you no context. Let me start reading the topic here. This is the start of the context. Or have you thought that the companions of the cave and the inscription were among our signs a wonder? Mention when the youths retreated to the cave and said, Our Lord, grant us from yourself mercy and prepare for us from our affair right guidance. So we cast over their ears within the cave for a number of years. Then we awakened them that we might show them which of the two factions was most precise in calculating what they had remained in time, to what extent they had remained in time. It is we who relate to you their story in truth. Indeed, they were youths who believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance. And we made firm their hearts when they stood up and said, Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. Never will we invoke besides him any deity. We would have certainly spoken then an excessive transgression. These our people have taken besides him deities. Why do they not bring for worship of them a clear authority? And who is more unjust than one who invents about Allah a lie? The youth said to one another, And when you have withdrawn from them and that which they worship other than Allah, retreat to the cave. Your Lord will spread out of you his mercy and will prepare for you from your affair facility. And if you had been there, you would have seen the sun when it rose, inclining away from their cave on the. What the hell is this talking about? I mean, seriously, does anyone have any idea what this is talking about? There is no introduction to the topic. There is, by the way, no clarification to this at all. Nothing. Which is why when a Muslim who reads this doesn't know what's actually going on here, which is why they have to open a book, a tafsir, which is a book of interpretations and exegesis, to find out what the Quran is actually talking about here, because what the Quran says itself doesn't make any sense. It doesn't tell you anything. It just says empty words. It goes on much worse here. I'm not continuing here, but it goes on much worse, which is why there are numerous books consisting of thousands of pages that introduce you to what the Quran actually means here and the background of this Quran verse. And imagine the Quran is supposed to be an eternal book that was either created before the creation of humankind, or it is uncreated and coexisted with Allah all the time before creation. And this book is supposed to be the eternal message forever, for all eternity, for all humankind. And it is so stupidly incoherent. I don't know what else to say about this.
Well, it's pretty awesome. Oh, wait. There was one more thing in there. I remember there was a second part. And so Google user said, why does the Quran make me feel like I'm getting demon possessed? Google user, we would encourage people to study Islam and so on, but if you're actually feeling like you're getting demon possessed by reading the Quran, then yeah, you might want to stay away from that.
Yeah.
Hey, look at this. Gina Wonder Woman said, "Lol, David Wood pretending he knew Aristotle and Plato."
What?
I don't know if she's saying, because I wasn't saying I actually knew them. I'm talking about their writings, but yeah, Gina, yeah, I knew Aristotle and Plato pretty darn well here. That's kind of the price of admission for philosophy. Oh,
now he has to show his collection. He has to prove that he knows.
This is always close by.
Whoa, Plato's Republic.
Yeah. This is probably like you can see the highlights. This is probably my 9th or 10th copy of Plato's Republic here. You want to challenge me? You want to challenge me on the intro? Pick one of the 10 books. I'll break it down for you right now. You want to talk about the city soul analogy? Huh? Is that what you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the tripartite soul? You want to talk about the allegory of the cave? What do you want to talk about? You want me to break down the whole book in a nutshell? Because I can do that. I can read a 300-page book and break it down in just a couple of sentences. I can do that.
Gina Wonder Woman, if I was you, I would apologize right away and possibly even leave this live stream. All right. Let me.
But
you're just reading this because you had to read it, right? Because it was part of your education. So.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. I mean, I have to admit. See, I liked Aristotle's. I liked what he was saying better. He was very systematic. I mean, Aristotle just invented entire fields, right? Like biology. Aristotle actually is the one who came up with that. Logic, just, hey, let's study forms of argumentation and stuff. Aristotle comes up with that. So total genius. But apparently the works of Aristotle that we had were basically like his lecture notes. And so whereas we have pretty much everything Plato wrote, and he focused on dialogues, we only have about a fifth of what Aristotle wrote, and what we actually have are kind of his lecture notes for his lectures to his students. And so we don't have. He apparently wrote dialogues and things like that we just don't have anymore. So he might have been wonderful, but yeah, we just don't know. Anyway, sad.
I was just recently talking on Twitter to people about Plato because of. I was asking people if they think that that democracy is a perfect system, or whether democracy should be replaced with a better system in the future. And there was kind of this 50-50 disagreement. Like 50% were thinking democracy is the best thing we will ever have, and the other 50% were thinking it should be replaced with something better. And most of the people were who agreed with the later part were agreeing that we should have a system where people who are actually trained to be part of the government should be part of the government. Mm. And anyways, whole different topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Django here says, I'm Eastern Orthodox. I think that Islam and Reformed Christianity. Now, Django, what do you mean when you say Reformed Christianity? Because based on what I'm reading right here, it doesn't sound like you mean Reformed Christian. What's called Reformed Christianity right now is parallel to Calvinism, right?
That's what I thought.
Whereas it sounds like he's saying Protestantism is he's thinking of like Reformation, like the Protestant Reformation as Reformed Christianity. So he says, I'm Eastern Orthodox. I think that Islam and Reformed Christianity are two sides of the same coin in some ways. Islam is to the Eastern churches as Protestantism to the Western church in some ways. Yeah, you'd have to spell out what those ways are. But basically, Protestantism is saying, hey, go back to the Bible and stick with the Bible. And I guess you could say Islam tells you that, but most Muslims don't know that Islam tells you that. But yeah, so you could say Islam tells you to go back to what what the Bible says, and that Christians are supposed to live according to that.
I think my brain died earlier from reading the Quran because I really don't. I for some reason, I failed to understand the analogy in the last sentence, which is Islam is to the Eastern churches as Protestantism is to the Western church in some ways. I don't know why I can't make the connection here in my head. My brain might have died today, and it's just because I wanted to enlighten the world about the Quran.
We have Dr. David Wood. Where is Sam Shamoun? Sam Shamoun is out in Phoenix, the armpit of America. No offense, Phoenix. I'll be out there next week. But yeah, I might end up going live with Sam next weekend. We'll see, because we'll be in the same area. All right, couple more questions, and then we should be wrapping up after not too much longer. All right,
wrapping up. I thought we would be here for another 2 hours or so.
I know, we always do that. It's a horrible.
The night just started, David.
All right, actually, here was the longest question for you. But it's another atheism one, and really the question is, I think the real question is like kind of what you mean by atheism, because there are different definitions nowadays. So here, this is taking up the whole screen here. I tried to stick with shorter things, but Tatiana's always up in the in the chats and in the comments and stuff like that. So, but she said, for AP, thoughts on this? William Lane Craig. We'll take this slow because AP's brain is fried and so is mine. William Lane Craig wrote that if broader definition of atheism is seen as merely the absence of belief in God. So just to be clear, everyone, atheism, like when I was an atheist, I said God doesn't exist. I didn't say I was positive about that, but I would say, no, I'm claiming that God does not exist. Whereas now lots of atheists will say, no, atheism is simply lack of belief in God. It's not it's not an affirmation that God doesn't exist. It just means you don't believe in God. So let's see where this is going. So definition of atheism is seen as merely the absence of belief in God. Atheism ceases to be a view. So it's just a lack of something. So it's not actually a position. It's a lack of something. Atheism ceases to be a view, and even infants count as atheists. So an infant, if an infant lacks positive belief in God, then the infant would be an atheist given that definition. Not only that, I mean, this chair would be an atheist. This chair lacks belief in God. So almost all kinds of things would be atheist. For atheism to be a view, in other words, if atheism is not going to be a lack of something, if it's actually going to be a position, let's see, for atheism to be a view, Craig adds, one would still require justification in order to know either that God exists or that he does not exist. Like the agnostic Anthony Kenny. Anthony Kenny writes lots of works in philosophy and so on that are used as like textbooks and so on. Like the agnostic Anthony Kenny, Craig argues that there is no presumption for atheism because it is distinct from agnosticism. There's a lot here. All right, we're just going to have to get the basic idea here. Let me finish reading this and then we'll get the basic gist. Such an alleged presumption is clearly mistaken, for the assertion that there is no God is just as much a claim to knowledge as is the assertion that there is a God. Therefore, the former assertion requires justification, just as the latter does. It is the agnostic who makes no knowledge claim at all with respect to God's existence. So there's a lot there. Anyone who wants to get that down more, this will be a video afterwards, so you can go back and read it carefully. Looks like the main issue is if you say atheism is just a lack of something, then it's not actually a position, it's not actually a view. And anything, an infant would qualify as an atheist, a cat would qualify as an atheist, a cat lacks belief, a chair would qualify as an atheist. Therefore, if you want to say it's an actual position, So basically, you can say it's not an actual position; it's just a lack of something, and then you wouldn't have much to defend, but you're not saying much, and your view would kind of be indistinguishable. Atheism would be indistinguishable from agnosticism because agnostics lack a belief in God. Or if you want to say that no, I'm actually saying there is no God, then you have a position, but now you'd kind of have a burden of proof to defend your position as rational or something like that. So basically, AP, what do you mean by atheism? And you respond however you want to that question.
Well, I would. I think I watched a talk by William Lane Craig about his I would say his confusion with atheism and agnosticism, and I totally disagreed with his definition of atheism and with agnosticism. I think it is built on the premise that agnostic and atheist are completely different, separate positions, which many people, especially many atheists and agnostics, don't necessarily agree with. People generally argue, especially atheists generally argue that atheism is not a certain view. It is just the lack of belief in God. If you don't believe in God, then you are an atheist. You might be a gnostic atheist in that you forcefully assert and know that there is no God, or you might be an agnostic atheist in that you say, I don't know whether there is a God or not, but I simply don't believe. Or you might be neutral and you might just be an atheist. You might be an apathetic atheist and think it doesn't matter to me whether there is a God or not, I just don't believe.
So go ahead.
In essence, I don't believe, and many people don't believe, that atheist and agnostic are separate things. And people usually believe that atheism alone is not necessarily a position, an ideology, or a view. I agree with that. I think that many of us are atheists. Many of people who identify as atheists are atheists, and many of them have a huge variety of views on God. The only thing that unites us is that we don't believe in God. Whether someone asserts that there is certainly no God, or there might be a God or not, but I don't believe, that's a separate issue. I believe atheism just means I don't believe in God. That is it.
So you would say within the category atheism, there are different subcategories. One of those groups would be what traditionally we were thinking of when we were thinking of atheists, people who say there is no God, and that a different category would be people who. So you would say the category atheism is just people who lack belief in God. But the subcategory people would be, hey, I lack belief in God and I'm ready to defend the non-existence of God. And then you'd have another category of people who, I don't really know, but I lack belief in God. And then maybe another group, I don't really care, and I don't believe in God. And that these would be subcategories. Yeah.
I believe it only makes sense to do that. It only makes sense to do that because there is such a variety of atheists, of people who call themselves atheists. I mean, if you collect 50 atheists, so those 50 atheists will all identify as atheists, but they will all have different views on whether God exists or not. 10 of them will say, I know for sure that God doesn't exist. 5 of them will say, I know that the God doesn't exist, and I also dislike religion and I counter religion, and that makes me an atheist. 5 others will say, I don't know if there is a God or not. I don't believe that there is a God, and that makes me an atheist. Others will say, I don't really care, and that makes me an atheist. So I think out of necessity, you have to categorize that, and you have to collect them under the umbrella of atheism, which literally indicates that you don't believe in God.
Mm-hmm. And so going back to what Tatiana was asking, would you say that the people under the atheism umbrella who are saying, no, I'm actually affirming the non-existence of God, I'm actually stating that as a position, that maybe they do have a burden of proof to defend what they're saying, whereas other people who, might not have that kind of burden of proof?
Of course. Well, if someone assertively says there is no God, then I believe that person. I don't think there is a burden of proof to that. I think there is a burden to argue for their position. just as a Christian or a believer in God. I hate to use the word theist, but just as a believer in God, who wants to assert that there is a God, needs to explain why there is a God. Someone who asserts that there is no God also needs to assert why there is no God. I don't believe that any of the sides has a burden of proof. I completely disagree with both believers and disbelievers in that regard.
All right, Tatiana, hope that helps clear up AP's view on these.
I'm a very unconventional atheist, by the way, and you would probably find me disagreeing with a lot of with most atheists when it comes to debates about God, and with most people who believe in God. But I'm still preparing a video on why I don't believe in God. It's taken forever.
I look forward to crushing it.
Yeah, and I look forward to crushing you.
Hindu historian said, incidentally, the classic commentaries on the Quran pretty much all confirm the violent meanings of the supposedly misinterpreted violent verses. Yeah, so that is an additional problem, going back to the wonderful, wonderful book that the Quran is, that modern Muslims tell us what a wonderful book it is, and so perfect and so eloquent, and then you start bringing up what these verses mean, they say, oh, well, what Allah really meant is... But yeah, this adds an additional layer of problem, namely that, wow, Allah was so unclear in his perfect book that he misled centuries of his most devout interpreters, who all concluded that when he says, hey, fight those who do not believe, he actually means fight those who do not believe. And when he says, hey, your wife gets out of line, beat her into submission, that's exactly what he means. And these people concluded that this is what the Quran means, and it's not until we get to modern Muslims that people can finally understand what the Quran really means. So, yeah, you got some problems here. Hey, this one's for you, AP. It's not a question. But Christina says, I recently shared a few of AP's videos with one of my closest friends who is a moderate Muslim. You left them speechless. Thank you for all of your hard work.
That makes me proud and happy. It touches me. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure.
AP leaving them speechless. All right, let's do a kind of
really I appreciate that so much, and that really, when I hear stuff like that, that makes me further believe in why I'm actually doing this. It reminds me of why I'm doing this. So it's really great to hear that.
No, it is. I mean, that is why we do this stuff. If it wasn't going to accomplish anything, we'd be doing something else. So
yeah.
All right, let's check out some shorter questions here. Muhammad is a very bad guy, but how come many Muslims defend him and proclaim he was a very good person? What Quran or Hadith verses do they use for that, and how do you read and deal with those verses? Well, you have passages like Surah 33, verse 21 of the Quran, which says that Muhammad is the pattern of conduct for Muslims. But basically, the tendency I find among Muslims is they'll look for anything good or nice that he did, and they'll kind of exaggerate it and make it sound like, Muhammad's the only one who could ever do something like this. In other words, what I mean here is Muhammad told his followers, hey, give alms and things like that, or help widows and orphans. He'll say things like that. But a Muslim will look at that and it will suddenly get magnified to where, look at this selfless man going around constantly. It just gets blown out of proportion. There's a book. I'm trying to see if I've got a copy of it laying around. There's a book called Towards Understanding Islam by Maududi, and it is filled, just page after page after page of praising Muhammad for how wonderful he was. And you think about what's actually being said by Muslims. Oh, but he encouraged people to help orphans. Okay, I know tons of people like that. What in the world does that have to do with them being a prophet? And guess what? If you just focus on them saying, help orphans or something like that, you can't ignore other things they did. Right? You can't ignore all the other things they did. In other words, let me give you an example. Let me tell you about a guy who dedicated his life to helping young men find work and helping them find jobs and getting them involved with things. He would go around to children's birthday parties and as a clown to entertain young people at their birthday parties. He was a volunteer for organizations like the JCs, constantly helping young people. You could go down the list of how wonderful this guy was. if we're trying to decide whether he's really a great role model, I probably shouldn't leave out the fact that he raped and killed 30 some young men, right? I shouldn't leave that out, right? In other words, if you want to say, hey, you did these horrible things, you can't just say, oh, no, but, he went as a clown to kids' birthday parties, so we'll just ignore all that other stuff. And so when we get to Muhammad, no, you can't just say, hey, there are a few good, here's a few good things Muhammad did during his life. Therefore, we just ignore him having sex with a 9-year-old girl and taking the life of his own adopted son and all the other things he did, right? Hey, P, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I would say many people misunderstand what Muslims actually are. It's because it takes some empathy, some understanding of the other side to understand what Muslims actually believe in and what motivates them. The average Muslim who believes in Islam doesn't go around knowing that their prophet raped a child or had sex slaves and all that stuff. Normal, regular Muslims don't go around having that in the front of their mind and just saying, well, my prophet is a good person anyways because of X, Y, Z. That's not how they do it. The way a normal Muslim grows up is you learn from early childhood that Muhammad was an amazing, fantastic person. I grew up having these books close to my bed that would talk about the beloved prophet. I never forget that. It is the title is The Beloved Prophet in Turkish. That's the prophet I grew up with. I grew up being read stories in which the prophet helps people and cares about people and loves people and says and prays day and night for his Muslim followers and believers. That's the guy that we grew up with. Muslim teachers want the younger generations to believe in Islam and to hold on to Islam and to love it, to love the Prophet, which is why they selectively take the good sides of it in order to make them believe in it, in order to make them love it further. And they don't do that because they have bad intentions. They don't want to deceive their children. They think that is the right thing to do. That's the good thing to do. They don't think that that some bad things about the stories of Muhammad are very important. So as a result, younger people don't grow up believing that Muhammad did a lot of terrible things. They wholeheartedly believe that Muhammad was a wonderful person, that he was the best person to have ever lived, to have ever walked the face of the earth. And that's why when they confront you and when they tell you online that Muhammad was an amazing person, he was the best person, they say that while really believing that. They don't say that just because they want to deceive you, because they want to lie to you. They actually believe that. It really takes to understand where they are coming from in order to understand why they believe in what they believe in. And there are a lot of stories in Islam that would make you believe that Muhammad was a great person, but only if you silence and blend out all those stories that make him a terrible person. And that's what Muslims do, what they grow up with. It's I even think often it's not even their fault. But then also it is, so.
Yeah, I'm still looking around for. I know I have a copy of it around here, of Maududi's book around here somewhere. But based on what you were just saying, right? That they grow up hearing these stories. And Muhammad sounds like the greatest man who ever lived. And if you're told this, not only for your entire life, but also by everyone you respect, right? So all your religious leaders, your family, all the smartest people in your society are telling you, greatest man who ever lived, most wonderful man who ever lived. That's the difficulty, because basically everyone you've respected for your entire life tells you one thing, and then the apostate prophet comes along and says, no, actually he did all kinds of horrible things. Who sounds like the crazy person to someone who's been indoctrinated all his life? AP sounds like the crazy person, even though he's the one who's actually telling the truth about Muhammad. So that's the situation. But guys, that just means we kind of have our work cut out for us in getting through this.
On top of that, the Quran and Islamic sources, and therefore your parents and your elders also tell you from the very beginning that other people outside of Islam don't like Islam, and they don't like you Muslims, and they want to deceive you. They want to turn you away from Islam. They want to turn you into their own kind. They want to convert you to their own religion. So when a Muslim now grows up and suddenly encounters David Wood in the Apostate Prophet, who talk about all the terrible things that Muhammad has done, then they think, oh, this is what the Quran was talking about. This is what my parents were talking about. These are the bad guys who are trying to lie to me and to deceive me into becoming rebellious and becoming one of those filthy traitors. That's what they.
And they are so convinced of that if I quote a hadith. And I've got it up on the screen, and the Muslim doesn't have the same hadith collection or something like that. He'll accuse me of making it up. You're making all that up about Muhammad. Why? They've never heard it, right? And all the most respected people that they've ever known told them the opposite of what I'm saying. And so they'll say, you made that up. And I'll say, look, it's right here on the screen. Here's the book. And they'll actually accuse me of printing up my own volumes of hadiths in order to lie and deceive. Why? As AP pointed out, right? Hey, we're the ones giving you the truth. This is what they're told. We're the ones giving you the truth, but people are going to come along. These are very evil people, and they're going to lie about your prophet because their goal is to keep you away from God and so on. So, yep, that's what we're dealing with here.
That's a very good topic, actually. I should have made a thing about that long ago, and I really want to prepare something about that.
Shout out to Melissa Hogan and Rachel in the Boom Squad, the greatest group ever. We'll be doing some fun stuff. But given all the tragedies that are going on in D Wood's life right now, January's been pretty busy. But should be wrapping some of those things up. We get back to Boom Squad fun in February. Didn't think it would actually last this long. I thought as soon as I made this, it was going to get canceled by YouTube, just because YouTube does so much stuff to mess with me. I thought. Obviously, they're just going to take this down instantly, and they didn't. So it's actually shocking that I still have channel memberships. So that's interesting. Good. And by the way, everyone, AP has channel memberships too. So if you're a channel member on my channel, there are other channels out there, and it's good to support the channels because this is fun stuff we're doing. And quick comment
I'm even a better prophet than Muhammad. So if you really
you're a way better prophet than Muhammad. Way better.
Thank you.
Another comment from Christina here says, AP and Apostate Prophet and David Wood's humor is the only way I can tolerate anything slightly related to Islam. Does anyone else agree?
Thank you.
We're glad. All right, we're going to have to go to lightning round now because we do need to wrap up here pretty soon. I'm not sure where I left off. Let me pull a couple of these up. Let's see. Did we read this? Oh, yep, we read that one. Here's Craig. All right, let's try and I'm going to try and not give long answers here. This is for you anyway, so you're good. AP, how can Muslims and the left ignore thousands of Muslims every year reading the Quran, then yelling Allahu Akbar before killing someone? Do thousands of people misunderstand the Quran, or is it a book that leads to evil acts? Actually, I do have something to say on that, even though this one's directed to you. I just wanted to point out, Craig, I posted a video a few years ago, and it's titled 3 Questions for Moderate Muslims. One of those questions I asked was along this line. So if everyone sees here, it says, do thousands of people misunderstand the Quran, or is it a book that leads to evil acts? In other words, when we see terrorists slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah, is it because that's actually what Islam teaches, or are they all simply misunderstanding Islam in the same way? And the question I asked in that video back then was, for practical purposes, what's the difference between a book that actually tells people to go out and violently subjugate the unbelievers, or a book that's so hopelessly confusing that it just really sounds like it's doing that, and therefore a bunch of people do it? So which one's a better book? The one that actually tells you to go out and slaughter people in the name of Allah, or the one that, even though Allah doesn't mean it, what he says is go out slaughter unbelievers in the name of Allah, even though he doesn't really mean it, and therefore you get the same result? Which one should be more comforting to us? Anyway, the point is, I made a video discussing that, so you can check that out. But AP, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts are, when I was a Muslim back then, and I knew of Islamic terrorists going around and killing massive numbers of people, it felt very dark, because it's you are a Muslim, you have this Muslim identity, Muslim belief, and you see on television that in this recent attack. In fact, I was a kid when 9/11 happened, and you are a Muslim and you see that your fellow believers are killing hundreds and thousands of people in the name of Allah. And the thing is, it's a very complicated topic, but there are many people, I would say, many people who, and I really want to be as honest as I can, but I cannot help but speak the truth about this without making it sound like I'm trying to demonize people. But there are a lot of people who seem to be ignoring it and who seem to be rejecting Islamic terrorism, and who openly also say, "Oh, I totally reject that. I don't like that. That's not me. That's not Islam." But innerly among themselves, they think, "Well, those non-Muslims who died deserved it." There are a lot of these people exist. I've seen them in masses around me. People who you would think are very peaceful, very nice people. But to be fair, a lot of people, a lot of normal, regular, mainstream Muslims don't agree that you, as a Muslim, should go out and kill people, kill innocent people, and bomb them. That you should, wear a vest and go in the middle of 100 people and blow yourself up. They don't believe that. And even those who think that that the victims of terrorism deserved to die don't believe that those who killed those victims are rightful in their act. They just think, oh, well, at least someone has done it. But the thing is, this is just a disagreement in Islamic sects, in Islamic movements, and this is not something new. The moderate Muslims who exist today, who say, "Hey, this is my religion. My religion is a peaceful religion, and in my religion we don't kill innocent people. And Islamic terrorists who kill people are not Islamic. They are actually infidels. They don't actually believe in Islam." People who say that are not something very new. This is not a new movement, not a new invention. This has existed for 1,400 years in Islamic history. Islamic history is full of different Islamic organizations, different movements, different streams of Muslims accusing each other of not following the true Islam, of following a wrong interpretation of Islam, of going too far or not going far enough. In fact, there is a term in Islamic history which is the Khariji or the Khawarij, which means the outsiders or the third group. Muslims have for 1,400 years accused each other always of being part of this group. And this group is supposed to be a group of Muslims who went astray by going too extreme or by not being extreme enough. ISIS accuses other Muslims of being part of this group. Mainstream Muslims accuse ISIS of being part of this group. So Muslims always had this thing where they cancel each other, where they think, oh, those people don't belong to me. They are not real Muslims. I don't identify with them. While those Muslims say, well, those Muslims, the ones who don't kill people, are not real Muslims. I don't identify with them. I am the real Muslim. That is a schism that has always existed. But what it should tell you is that this is an organic part of Islam. The people who are peaceful, who don't go out and kill, and the people who go out and kill and who do extreme stuff are both an original and organic part of Islam. In fact, in history, it came to such extent that nowadays you find that most Islamic scholars think that they shouldn't align themselves with Islamic terrorists, for example, and that they should distance themselves from Islamic terrorists. That was not always the same in Islamic history. In Islamic history, there were some points where the most dominant Islamic scholars thought that the extremists went too far, but that they are nevertheless within the folds of Islam, and that as Muslims they should be loyal to those extremists because they are Muslims nevertheless, even if they are wrong and extremist Muslims, while their enemies, the infidels who are being killed under extreme and unjust circumstances, are infidels who reject Allah. So the terrorist is still better than the non-Muslim. That was a view that has existed in history very much, and especially traditionalist, fundamentalist Muslims in our time should be very well aware of this history. That was a very long answer. I'm very sorry. But, yeah.
Every time I say we're going to keep it short, we both go 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey.
So in short, not true Muslims, not real Muslims, has always existed.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. I mean, I think this is actually an important issue, and I really, I want to point it out more how when I say, look, the Quran says fight those who do not believe, and another Muslim said, Muslim will say, but what it really means is that it's no better, right? If you've got a book that sounds like it's commanding you to go out and fight unbelievers, then the two alternatives is he really means it or he doesn't really mean it. If he really means it, that's bad. If he doesn't really mean it, but he still sounds like it, it's still bad, right? It's still bad, and it's still going to get people killed. And so, yeah, you have that, and then of course everything AP was talking about, and so hope that helps. Hope that helps, Craig. All right, I do not know what this next one is going to be. Let's try and treat this like a lightning round. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to say what I can as fast as I can and see what happens. All right, ready?
I'm ready.
AP. Oh, this one's for you. Please explain why every other prophet said the opposite to Muhammad. Who is correct? My answer, because he's a false prophet. That's why. Pow. All right, go ahead.
Same.
Okay, good. That was the fastest. That was the fastest thing ever. Oh, actually, here's a cool one for you. I have a cousin who converted to Islam, Sufism specifically. He went to the Islamic school in Claremont, California, and now lives in Mississippi. What's a good opening line to discuss his beliefs? Thinking Greg Kokel here. Can you give an overview of what Sufi Islam is exactly? So, AP, what is Sufi Islam in a nutshell?
I was briefly, I was actually at a very important point in my Muslim history, a Sufi Muslim. Sufi Islam is basically Islamic mysticism. Sufi Muslims believe in the same book, in the same theology that traditionalist Muslims believe in, but they believe additionally that there are some sort of saints in Islamic history that are representatives of the Prophet Muhammad on earth while he is dead, and that by following them and by paying your respect to those saints, you can get closer to the Prophet Muhammad and thereby closer to Allah. They also establish shrines that you can visit after those saints die, and they have some different interpretations of Allah, like Sufis believe that Allah is everywhere at the same time, that he's not above his throne up there somewhere in the sky, while traditionalist Muslims believe that Allah is literally up there above the seventh heaven over his throne. So they have some slight disagreements. Sufis are more emotional people. They are more about loving Allah and being devout, while traditionalist Muslims are more about exercising and executing the laws of Allah. That would be the best summary that I could give. How you should approach them is basically, I would say, the same way.
Shining brightly, I would just say, notice what you just did. You asked us about Sufi Islam, what it is exactly. I would say that to your cousin, right? Hey, I've heard about Islam. I've heard about various Muslim groups. I've heard about Sunni Islam, Shia Islam. Could you explain to me what Sufi Islam is exactly? And then let that person start talking, and then just keep. If you're talking about Greg Kokel focuses a lot on asking questions. That's normally how I encourage people to start off conversations like this. But ask questions. What is Sufi Islam? How is it different? What are your sources? Why do you believe this? Why do you believe that? And then, as various issues rise, then you're going to start seeing some directions you might want to go. Because as you're asking your cousin questions, the issues that are foundational to your cousin's perspective are the good reasons that your cousin happens to believe in are going to come to the surface, and those are the issues you want to focus on after that. All right, got a few more minutes here before. Yeah, we definitely have to wrap up in the next 7 minutes or so. All right. We have some questions. These are from Carol, but Carol's first name was on the thing, and I didn't know she wanted her first name posted, so I chopped her name off there. David and AP, thoughts on demonic spirits and possessions. Are they real? She said, AP, I think you might say... Yeah, AP, I think you might say no. If so, you've mentioned you had a dream with what you thought was the devil. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would that not suffice to make you think there is some sort of afterlife? Why or why not? What's going on here?
Why would a dream make me think that spirits or afterlife is real? I don't understand the point. So I agree with that one. I'm studying psychology, and we have we have extremely scientifically accurate explanations to why we have dreams, why we perceive things a certain way. Our dreams are completely scientifically explainable. There is literally no room left for that to be interpreted in any spiritual or supernatural way, especially if you see some kind of ghost or devil or something like that, or even if you see it in your peripheral, even if you wake up at night and you see it in the corner of your room or in the darkness, it all has a scientific explanation about your perceptions and what your brain expects to see or fears to see, for example. I don't think that is an indicator of spirituality.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that dreaming about something makes it exist, right? If you dreamed about a ghost or something like that, yeah. Another one from Carol. She had a few. Comments or rationale on people that have claimed to die and go to heaven and or meet Jesus. So this would be near-death experiences. Haven't studied them a lot. I plan on it in the future, just because there are situations. People die, they're dead. There have been situations where people's brains are frozen. They have no electrical activity in their brain because the doctors need to perform an operation, so they actually freeze their brain while they're doing this to keep the person alive while they're doing it real quick. And then the person comes out of that and is able to describe everything that was going on and everything that was said. And there was one where a woman she had art skills, and she came and she sat there and drew the instruments that the doctors were using and stuff when her eyes were closed. Her eyes were sealed the entire time, and her brain was not functioning. So weird stuff that does happen like that, but yeah, I'd want to study it more before commenting. AP, what are your thoughts on this one?
Just a brief comment to what I said about dreams. Scientists think that there might even be in the future a way that you could simulate a dream that someone has in their brain going on, because you can literally follow that physically. About near-death experiences, this is actually something that I amateurishly looked into when I stopped believing in Islam, when I was about to stop believing in God, because I had an experience where I was coming home from work, and then I saw this near-death experience talk on TV, a discussion that made me extremely sad and suicidal, and I actually wanted to go and just commit suicide. And then I didn't do it, and since that bothered me so much at that time, that was 6 years ago or so, I actually sat down and started studying near-death experiences. And what I found out is that many of the near-death experiences are actually not the way they are described. Many of the descriptions of near-death experiences are actually not based on truth. Many of the near-death experiences are being made more dramatic in order for people to believe in them. In other ways, near-death experiences are just like dreams, completely explainable, explicable. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that. I've seen some weird ones. Saw a documentary about a woman who was born blind. She's blind her entire life. Had a near-death experience and suddenly could describe everything in a room that she'd never seen, and so stuff like that. But again, I would want to look into them.
That would actually make sense. More. That would actually make sense. I'm currently studying sensory receptors and perception, where if you are blind, for example, that your other senses, like your hearing and your smelling and all that stuff, could in your sleep make up for the lack of seeing, and actually bring a visual into your brain of what is going on. Or you could actually see without physically being able to see through your eyes.
You're saying she saw the room through her ears? Is that what you're saying?
No. She could actually see, despite the fact that she's blind. Actually, something because you see with you perceive what you see with your brain. So even if your eyes are normally blind, you could scientifically, explicably, in a situation, see, although you are blind.
I'd have to check that out, because she said that because she'd been blind from birth, that she just had no idea what any of this stuff was. She says, look, you guys are trying to imagine what it's like to be blind from birth. She goes, so you imagine it as like I'm just looking at a black screen all my life. I'm not. There's nothing there. There's nothing. There's no concept of looking at anything. And then all of a sudden, but we'll maybe that's something we'll look into someday here. Wahid keeps posting, David, when is your next debate with a Muslim? Actually, my next debate is with a Christian on how to deal with the topic of Islam. So it's going to be along the lines of, is it appropriate to mock Muhammad and do things like that? As far as debates with Muslims, I do get invited to debates. The issue that comes up is basically my last couple of debates with Muslims. The Muslims made me agree to a list of rules and then broke every last one of the rules. And so the question on moving forward in debates with Muslims is, why, how am I going to keep agreeing to debate people who do not and enter into an agreement with people who do not believe that they have any obligation to actually adhere to the rules, and they know I will, right? They know I will stick to every last letter of an agreement, and they will break every single thing in there because we have sort of different perspectives on right and wrong. So the question is how to move forward knowing that that is the situation. I have not solved that problem yet, right? But basically, I don't know exactly the number, but I would say between a quarter and a third of the debates I've ever had with Muslims, they blatantly violated the agreements that usually the ones that they had insisted that I agree to. Never had any problem with Shabir, never had any problem with lots of other Muslims, but it just seems to be catching on that people like AP and people like me, because we criticize Muhammad, therefore I don't have to honor my agreements with them. And therefore I will compel them to come to an agreement about the terms of the debate and then go out there and break every last one of them. And I don't care because I don't have to honor agreements with them, which will be fine if you didn't insist that we agree with them. All right. So here's the situation. A Muslim will come to you like this and say, you have to debate me or you're a coward and you are afraid of my arguments. And you say, look, I don't want to deal with that. Oh, well, you have to debate me or you're scared. Say, okay, fine. I'll debate you. All right. You have to agree to this list of debate rules that we're all going to follow. I don't want to agree with these because people from your side keep lying. Aha, then you're a coward. You're scared. Look, he's running from me. Look at everyone. He's running from me. He won't agree to debate me. Fine, I'll agree to your terms. Then breaks them all. And so that's the situation I keep finding myself in. How do you proceed with people like this? I haven't solved that mystery yet. Once we get that, happy to continue in the debate realm. Hope that answers question, Wahid. We are slightly over. Let's just get to these other ones by Carol here so I make sure we didn't miss any. She said, David, why don't you join Instagram? I thought about that. You got kicked off Instagram, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
What were you doing?
I was just posting images, kind of posting an image and writing something on it, like brief messages about Islam, stuff like that. And Instagram is very sensitive. I mean, if you just make a little joke, they can just take it down and eventually ban you. It's worse than Facebook.
Really? Yeah. So, I mean, unless I was just doing something totally different on Instagram, like if I was making philosophy videos or something like that, or something like that, then I mean, if AP didn't make it, I don't think I would either, because we kind of talk about the same thing.
Yeah, I thought I would use Instagram for personal purposes. Just go there and share like daily stuff and images with people. For that you can use it if you want to do that.
Oh, hey, actually, I believe we can get through these last couple because I just looked at one by Carol, but that's one I'm probably going to go live tomorrow because I'm going to be sitting in a hotel room at night, so I'll probably just go live. And but some of these questions that are actually kind of more towards me, I'm happy to answer those then. But there's only a couple real quick right here that we might actually get through the ones I brought up. Islam Critique says, where did Jesus say, I am God, worship me, in those exact words? Bam. Bam. Everyone make sure you're subscribed to Islam Critiqued. Deals with a lot of the same issues that AP and I deal with. He's also sarcastic, and he focuses on some issues that we don't focus a lot on. So get some more stuff there. Romans Girl Says, probably won't be watching live, blah, blah, blah. In your video the other day about female flogging squad in Aceh, I was wondering why only women were flogged for allegedly having premarital sex. Are men ever flogged for the same crime? Yes. Yes, men get flogged too. The point of the article that I was commenting on was that they were coming up with a female flogging squad specifically to flog women. So the men would be flogged by the men and the women would be flogged by women and that. All right, so these are the last two things by Hexitas here. Hexitas says, in your opinion, what is the best or least bad argument for Islam? Here's where it comes into sort of can we well, no, we're not arguing like a Muslim here. We're kind of giving our perspective on what the best case for Islam would be. Do you have any thoughts on that?
If you really want me to look at it from my perspective, my level, I don't think that there is any good argument for Islam.
Yeah, if I were to try and answer this, I mean, the standard arguments for Islam, I regard as, it's not just, hey, this argument isn't strong enough. It's that if you actually look at the evidence shows the exact opposite of what you're claiming. And this way, so in other words, if the main arguments that the Quran gives are things like, Muhammad's prophesied in the Bible. If you go to the Bible, Muhammad's a false prophet according to the Bible. That's where you're sending us for confirmation. Or, Muslims will say, the Quran's been perfectly preserved. If you spend 5 minutes examining the history of the Quran, you find it's been changed over and over and over again. So it's not just, hey, this isn't a good argument. That would be a bad argument even if the Quran had been perfectly preserved, because you'd still need to believe that any book that's been perfectly preserved must be the word of God, and that's a stupid rule, right? The point is, even if you granted that, the Quran just hasn't been perfectly preserved. It's clear, right? So the arguments are usually based on just horrible logic or just complete falsehood. If I were to say, what's the best case a Muslim can make, I would just do sort of what parts of the Quran do and present a case for natural theology and present a case for one God and say, hey, this is a religion that proclaims this one God that created the universe, and as long as you can ignore everything else it says, because keep in mind, guys, if Muslims will say, but it's one God, well, great, that's just called monotheism. Islam is a package, right? So that's just monotheism. You can be a monotheist without believing in Islam. But if I were to make a case, it would be something like that. I would say, here's the religion that promotes belief in one God or something like that, and then I would try to deflect from other things.
It's. Were you speaking? Were you saying so?
Oh no, go ahead. I was going on to the next Hexitas's next question here. But
I had. I don't know. I'm really trying very hard to think about any argument for Islam, and I cannot think that anything is actually reasonable. I think the only arguments that actually made me think about Islam for Islam were arguments that were for the existence of God, as you just said, and they would then be about the existence for God, and I have enough reasons against that too. I think one issue with Islam that made me further think about Islam was its assertions about Ishmael, and I don't know. It's too deep of a topic, but I think Islam's assertion that Ishmael somehow, is that Muhammad is a descendant of Ishmael, that he preserves his legacy, and that he brings a truth, in a way, sometimes seems intriguing to me, but then it all again doesn't make sense, because it would very much look like the God who brought us Islam was a heavily disorganized and weird God who didn't properly know how to preserve a message, how to send a message, how to make a message. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if honestly, I'm being very honest, dear Muslims who are probably not watching this anymore at this point anyways, I really have no good reason to believe in Islam at all.
Yeah, and guys, just to be clear, same thing when we're talking about the Quran as this really, really horrible book. We're not just saying, hey, we disagree with it and therefore we're going to make fun of any arguments, right? Like, you could ask me, what's the best argument for atheism? I could give you a list of arguments for atheism and tell you which one I think is the best. I could tell you why I disagree with it or something like that. But I could sit there and say, here's an argument where I can definitely see what the argument from evil, right? If God exists, why is there so much human and animal suffering in the world, right? You don't have to be a dummy to actually, think that's a good argument. The arguments for Islam, not good. Hexitas says there are many atheists who. What's that?
You think so?
I think what?
I think that the suffering argument is a terrible argument against God.
You think it is?
I think it is a terrible argument.
We should talk about that sometime because it's interesting. When I was an atheist, I was also had other problems, and so I kind of had the reverse thing where, like there were atheists who want a hedonistic paradise and things like that. I was like, if God existed, He would wipe us out. We're so freaking disgusting in everything we do. He would wipe us out. There is no God. Come on, He would annihilate us given all the stuff we do. Look at us, we're disgusting. So it's kind of like that. But
I honestly think it is one of the worst arguments for atheism.
I am intrigued now. We have to discuss that. We have to discuss that sometime because so maybe we have an atheist. No, we'd kind of need someone who wants to defend the positions. We need like one atheist who wants to defend it, and then you explaining why you think it's not a great argument, and then me thinking why, from a different perspective, why I don't think it's great. But that would be interesting.
Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I just need to talk about it. I don't know.
All right. And the second part here was there are many atheists who. Oh, he has another one with two. I think they're shorter. Let me see. Hexitas took a field day and posted like 20 things. I took a screenshot of his first four. But he said there are many atheists who seem supportive of David's arguments. Yes, atheists love David Wood against Islam, but claim. That the same arguments and same line of reasoning, when applied to Christianity, would lead you to reject Christianity. He says, to me, this seems obviously false, but many people seem to hold that view, so perhaps it would be worth addressing in a separate video. Also, to what extent does AP agree with this? I'll go ahead and give you my response, Exodus. I think that most of the parallels, right? Like if I'm saying, look at all this horrible stuff that Muhammad did, or look at look at what the Quran commands Muslims to do in the world. I think most of the parallels, most of the times people would say, you're being inconsistent because the same would apply to the Bible. I think most of the time it's superficial. It's very, very superficial, right? So I'll say, look at the Quran commands people to go out and violently subjugate the world. And then, but look at what Joshua was commanded to do in the land of Canaan. And so those are different situations. And so, I mean, he's commanded a particular piece of land to seize a particular piece of land with people who are doing some very horrible things. It's very different from, and it's in the past, right? It's not something that's a command to Christians. So there, the situation is Joshua was commanded to go do something that is not me. I'm commanded to love everyone, to live in peace with everyone. Those are commands that are directed towards Christians. So if you take the criticism of the Quran that, there are violent commands, you could flip that right back and say, but there were points in the Bible when there were violent commands, and say that they're the same. They're not the same, right? If you read the Bible and ask, what am I to do now? And you read the Quran and ask, what am I to do now? You get very different answers. And apart from that, you can point to Muhammad and say, look at all these horrible things he did. People will flip that back and say, but look at this horrible thing that David did. Look at this horrible thing that Moses did. Look at this horrible thing that so-and-so did. In Christianity, we don't look to these guys as that's the supposed parallel. That's the supposed inconsistency or hypocrisy. But if you look, these guys are not laid down as the patterns of conduct for mankind, right? In the Bible, Jesus is the one who's laid down as the pattern of conduct. And so in Christianity, you can say David was dead wrong for what he did there. You can say that. In Islam, Muhammad is still affirmed as this great pattern of conduct, and the things he did that we would complain about are affirmed as right. In other words, Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. That's not condemned. That's affirmed in Islam. So I would say that most of the examples where people would say, you're being inconsistent here, I would say that most of them are only superficial, and that if you actually look closer at what's being said, then you'd see. With all of that said, what you can say, if you wanted to point it out, is, hey, going back to the example of Joshua and the Canaanites, hey, Muslims are going to have to answer for these things in the Quran, but you as a Christian, you still have to reconcile your belief that God is loving with the command to Joshua to go and fight these people and so on. So Christians still have an issue, right? So basically Christians still have issues with, why does God allow suffering, or why did God do this, or things like that. We still have issues. But like I said, most of the time I would say it's superficial. What are your thoughts, AP?
Well, I believe as far as we are talking about the existence of God and theism and atheism, I believe that that a discussion on whether God exists or not should be completely separate from whether Christianity is true or Islam is true or not. I believe they shouldn't be included into the same discussion. I think we can argue lengthily about whether Islam is true and Islam is right or wrong or not. And then after we are done with that, we can talk about whether God exists or not. Similarly, we can talk about whether Christianity is true in its assertions or not. And after we're done with that, we can talk about whether God is true or not. Mm-hmm. If we prove that God does exist, then we can very well also argue for Christianity or for Islam. You can have very good points to argue for either one of them. I believe that there are some arguments that we make against Islam in which I believe there are many, actually, especially when we come to logical arguments regarding Islam, where I refute Islam or you refute Islam, that would also apply in a way to Christianity. I do believe that. I think I shouldn't be ashamed of saying that. That I believe when sometimes when we bring something up, I wouldn't say I believe there are hardly any moral issues that debunk Islam and Christianity at the same time, but I think there are a lot of logical issues where we can attack Islam, and then the same logical issue would also apply to Christianity. I would definitely say that, yes, but that's why I don't believe in it. So,
all right. Actually, we have an example here. It's funny, we were talking about that, and then Diva Girl Love did it. She's a Muslim girl. But she did exactly what we were just saying, right? So we're just saying superficial, right? So we would complain about Muhammad, right, having sex with a 9-year-old girl. And then the response was from Diva Love Girl, Mary was 12 and God found her fit to give birth to him, God. All right.
Wrong.
Yeah. That was wrong. So here is notice in almost every Muslim's mind, this would be parallel. What happens if you actually think about it a little more carefully here, Diva Girl Love? One, who's being talked about here? Notice you didn't even mention Joseph, right? You didn't even mention Joseph. So you're talking about God. So this is supernatural, and God is not being a pattern of conduct for when you should have sex with a girl. Why? There is no sex with a girl. The whole thing would be miraculous here, right? So not the same thing as Muhammad climbing on top of a 9-year-old girl. Two, there would be even if we granted everything you just said, which we won't, even if we granted everything you just said, big difference between 9 and 12. A girl of 9 may just be entering puberty. A girl of 12 can be finishing puberty. Big difference, because see, during puberty, those few years of puberty, your Muslim apologists, Diva Girl Love, they have this old enough to bleed, old enough to breed mentality. As soon as you start, as soon as you get your first period, you're ready for marriage and so on. That's absolute nonsense. That's a signal that puberty is that the process has started. Guess what? Still takes a few years for your hips to widen and things like that. It takes a while for your body to actually be prepared. So big difference between 9 and 12. Third, we have, where are you getting 12 from? Show me 12. Where are you getting that from? We don't know how old Mary was. She could have been 16 for all we know. We don't know. There's no reliable source. There is no remotely reliable source coming from anywhere near the 1st century that gives us an age for Mary. So the question we should be asking is, 1, why are you making stuff up? 2, why are you pretending that God performing a miracle with someone is comparable to Muhammad, the pattern of conduct for all mankind, having sex with a 9-year-old girl? 3, since we don't know how old Mary was, why are you comparing it to a 9-year-old girl? There's just no real parallel here. The 4th thing is, if you wanted to say Joseph, well, Joseph was going to marry her. Again, we don't know how old Mary was. Not only that, we don't know how old Joseph was. And apart from that, it wouldn't matter if Joseph was an axe murderer. He's not the pattern of conduct for Christians. Yeah. Joseph could have gone on to become an axe murderer. Has nothing to do. He's not put forward as the pattern of conduct. So superficial to the core. Thank you for that, Diva Girl Love. We assumed you used your best example, and your best example was a perfect example of what we were just talking about. All right, I hate to do this, but here are the last 2 from Hexitas. I've only put this up because these are super short, although it may require thought. If you could meet anyone in the world, who would that be, AP? Or would you need to think about that?
I would have to. I would have to think about that. But I don't know. There are so many people that I would like to meet. Some people I would like to meet for bad reasons. Are we talking about people that have existed over the span of human life?
I think he just means in the world right now. I'm guessing. Otherwise, he would have said anyone in history. So I'm assuming he means anyone in the world.
I have no idea. I don't know. I have to think about that.
Yeah,
I don't think that way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't even know, right? Like they often do the list, and for some reason, Tom Hanks is always at the top or near the top, right? It'll usually be like some president of the United States or Tom Hanks at the top. But when I think about it, Tom Hanks seems like he'd be pretty cool to think about. So if I had to just think off the top of my head and I could meet anyone, I'd probably like to hang out with Tom Hanks, maybe some comedian, something like that. There are apologists I like, but I usually meet them. So yeah, I usually meet them. So as far as people I haven't met, probably someone who's fun to be around, right? So a comedian or actor like Tom Hanks or something like that. Wait, I was saying Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just worried that I said Tom Cruise. He'd be funny too, because it'd be interesting discussion on Scientology and stuff. But yeah.
Actually, there is one person who is dead that I always wish I had met. That is Christopher Hitchens, just because I believe he was a very awesome debater and very great thinker.
Yeah, and what's interesting is as brutal as he could be, you can actually watch video discussions of him like sitting in a car with Christian, something like that, and they'll actually have like cool conversations, right? In other words, he was much more laid back in interpersonal discussions and so on. So he'd be a fun one. He'd be a fun one to talk to.
But someone else I would like to meet is the Pope, actually.
Yeah, your hero.
I want to meet the Pope.
That makes one of us. Just do not grab that dude, because he will karate chop you, dude. He will karate chop you.
Found experience to actually meet the Pope and have a deep conversation with him. I don't know why.
Yeah. All right, and the final one there. If you could debate anyone in the world, who would that be? So if you had your pick of all kinds of people to debate, who would it be?
Me, William Lane Craig.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. That would be interesting.
Right. Okay. Can I pick two?
Of course.
Okay, William Lane Craig and Zakir Naik.
Yeah. See, I've kind of mixed feelings about that, because just because Zakir Naik has gone his entire career without actually facing one single actual debater. I'd like to see him go up against any debater. So if I had the chance, I would like to debate him. But really, as far as I'd be much more interested in debating, like Dawkins or Sam Harris or something like that. That would be more interesting to me. But situation. All right. Well, there were one or two things that turned out to be questions that are more directed towards me, and I'll probably address those in a different live stream. But we got through all the ones that I had pulled up for you, AP. So that's cool.
Awesome.
Although we went way longer, as usual. We went way longer than anticipated.
Amazing. I want to respond to something that I saw at the very beginning, which I kind of noted here for some reason, where Stenson said, "Apostate Prophet, how do you feel when a Christian or someone of a different religion says they will pray for you?"
He screams and cries.
Yeah. I recently, someone said they would pray for me, and I broke my monitor out of anger. I started yelling. I couldn't control myself. I picked up my monitor and I was like, "How dare you pray for me? How dare you?" No, but I think I appreciate it when someone says they pray for me, even if it's a Muslim. When a Muslim says they pray for me, when a Christian says they pray for me, when someone else says they pray for me, I don't know what other people do. I think I appreciate it. I don't see anything bad in it. I don't perceive it as annoying. I don't believe that there is a bad intention in that. I believe I would just say thank you. If you believe with your heart that that helps, then I appreciate that, because I was once in that position, and I would spend hours praying for people. And when someone tells me that they are praying for me, then I think back of my times when I would pray. Of course, I was praying to this slave master God. That is there is a difference, but still it was prayer. So yeah.
All right, AP. Want to tell anyone?
Stop praying for me. What? What? What?
Well, so you're okay with people praying for you. How else can they support your work?
Honestly, just if you want to come and subscribe to the channel and just listen to the conversations, leave comments. Even if you disagree with me, come and say, hey, I disagree with you. Just leave a comment and follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. I wanted to tweet something on Twitter earlier. What was that? I wanted to tweet something about dog feces. But anyways, just wanted to tweet that because a Muslim told me that that I left Islam because just because I wanted to have a dog and pick up dog feces. And then I even wrote this here as a draft. I said, let me tell you something. I would rather pick up dog feces for the rest of my life than pick up the Quran, poison my household, and kill my brain.
See how mean you are? Does everyone see this? Right?
If you want to follow me for such mean statements, you can find me on Twitter as Apostate Ridwan, which is my real name. So thank you.
A couple final things here. Shout out to Cheryl R for the super sticker. Now we have, looks like a fox kissing a heart, or you can't see his mouth. He may be eating that heart. It sounds like something a fox would do. Shamir said, "What topic would AP debate Craig on?" So if it was you could debate Craig and you could pick the topic, what would it be on?
I don't know. I think it would be since I saw him argue with Sam Harris once about the existence of God and morality, and then I saw him have a talk with some Christian apologists about, again, morality and the existence of God. I'm not sure which topic I would prefer, but both topics I'm quite interested in debating, because I believe I would have a very much different perspective when it comes to the existence of God than what atheists usually offer.
Keep in mind, you got a Christian debater right here in front of you who also likes those topics.
You are the end boss. I have to beat all the others until I arrive at you.
Bob Aleem says delusional David Wood believes in the tooth fairy.
What?
And finally, Fred Sanford here says, just one question: can you stay on for another hour? I would say, I mean, we could, but no.
Oh, let's do it. Come on. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, I've seen people asking questions about my brother Manny and stuff in the chat. That's where I'm heading tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm driving to West Virginia with my wife and kids because tomorrow's Friday, and then Saturday is my mom's funeral. So we're driving there tomorrow. But tomorrow when we get there, we're going straight to see how my brother is doing. The news is not great. He communicates some of the time, but so far doctors do not believe that he will be able to live on his own at any point in the future. So that's that situation there. But yeah, I'll post an update tomorrow. When I get there, I'll probably record a video from there. What else? Yeah, gosh, there were a couple more things. But yeah, those will have to wait. All right, so everyone, thanks to AP for joining me again. Link to his channels in the description box. Link to his Patreons in the description box. Also, he has channel memberships for anyone who wants to carry on supporting his work, and it is absolutely crucial. We had questions about the apologetics empire. I think we pointed this out earlier, but yeah, AP and I are thinking somewhere a little later that we're actually sort of gather up all the people who deal with Islam, who want to get started on YouTube or want to be more effective on YouTube. We'll also gather together the people who are being really effective in dealing with Islam on the YouTube, and sort of bring in that younger, newer generation, or those new, people who want to get on YouTube and actually run them through some training. And so there will be a parallel. There could be a parallel empire. We'll have to come up with some cool, ominous name for the group. But yeah, so yes, we'll have all sorts of cool things coming up. All right, thank you for joining us, everyone. We went 2.5 hours. If
they're praying for me, stop praying for me.
If everything works out, then tomorrow when I'm in the hotel, if I'm back, I might just go live, just because otherwise I'll just be in the hotel. All right, see everyone then. Catch y'all later.
Stay away from Islam.
You sure?
Stay away from Islam.
Even when they have the best book?